The Camping World Truck Series on Fox is sponsored by Toyota. Moving forward. Kyle Busch well out in front of this one. 2.7 seconds up on Todd Bodine and Mike Skinner. Now second and third single file. TJ Bell, the former road racer, having a great outing here in fourth. And Ron Hornaday in fifth. The series opened last week in Daytona under the lights. A hard crash by number 10, James Busher, and the number 4, Ricky Carmichael. Two rookies getting involved in this one. Safety always a primary concern of NASCAR. Jeff Hammond files this week's State Farm Safety Report.
Well, Mike, when it comes to NASCAR racing, we all know that a head and neck restraint is required in all three series. But the other thing about these trucks, as well as the cars, there's a lot of similarities. The intrusion plate that's put on this side to protect the driver. You see the seat, much like what you would see inside of a truck or a Sprint Cup car, the same. The cockpit, very, very safe. You look across, you see the fire bottles. That fire suppression system is the same in both series. You think about the height of the greenhouse to keep the roll bars a little bit higher as far as the drivers are concerned, again, to give them a little bit more headroom. These trucks and cars are very similar. If you're able to peel the bodies away, you'll find out that the safety innovations in both series are very, very compatible. Mike?
Thank you, Jeff.
And Mike, you want to know why the 51 Busch is so fast? Look at him. How his truck is handling. It's not all him. He has a big part in it, but the people that set this truck up and make it handle the way it does, that's why he's so fast. He's not putting a bunch of wheel in it, slowing it down. The truck is just nice and free through the turn, and he's able to get around this racetrack better than anybody.
Kyle Busch is the only driver who is racing in all three of NASCAR's Premier Series this weekend, and nobody is saying he can't run the table and win them all.
I don't think there's any question. Now, I want to continue to follow Chad McCumbee and Bobby Dotter, his crew chiefs, what they've done here. Remember back on lap 26, that first caution, they did fuel only. They were leading the race at the restart. They fell way back because of the older tires. But on this last caution at lap 44, they, along with Ricky Carmichael, they came on the pit road and got their next set of tires. So now they're even with everybody as far as tires left. But the one thing, they're almost in a league of their own with the exception of Kyle Busch as he continues to march toward the top 5. In fact, he just went by Mike Bliss in the 40 truck for 6. So that strategy worked out perfect.
It did. Good call. Another former driver, as I talked about Kyle Busch, is Doug George is his crew chief. He's a former West Coast driver. He's from out here. Richie Waters been the crew chief on that 51 truck up until this year. They swapped. I think Waters is on the He's on the 15 truck now.
Right, the team truck driven by Shane Sieg. I think Doug George, former champion of what was the Winston West Series.
Right.
The last couple laps, Ben. You're 80 to his 78.
And that's 43.80 that Kyle Busch just ran that Doug George told him. Todd Bodine, actually by our score monitor, just ran a 43.78. A lot of the other trucks, with the exception of Chad McCumbee, is already in the 44-second bracket with this many laps on their tires.
And that's the strategy for the 51. He's so fast on the start of a run that seems to balance out right at the end of the run, though. But it's too late. Too little, too late.
How has Ricky Carmichael done after that double pit stop coming from the back? We'll tell you in a moment.
And there goes Kyle Busch.
The kid is exciting to watch.
Kyle Busch is checking out.
He's got the lucky charm, baby.
A dominant performance today by Kyle Busch, winning the San Bernardino County 200.
Kyle Busch 4 seconds in front of Mike Skinner. This race has 30 laps left to go. And Ricky Carmichael's fought his way back up to 13th after restarting back about 21st.
You know, Mike, NASCAR actually has a rule today that to race in one of the top 3 series, the Camping World Truck Series, the Nationwide Series, or the Sprint Cup Series, you have to be 18 years old. Now, that's a rule that was made about 2 or 3 years ago. In 2001, Kyle was driving for Jack Roush at age 16, and he was set to make his very first NASCAR Camping World Truck Series start here at Auto Club Speedway. But because of a cigarette sponsorship of the open wheel race that weekend, officials pulled him out of the truck and said, "You can't race." That right there is what led them to make that rule. You have to be 18 years old to race in this series or any of the other top 2 series.
I tell you, these two guys right here, they're going to wreck each other playing around. Todd Bodine and Mike Skinner. One will get in front, and the other will draft back up to him, and they'll bump draft a while, and then the other will get in front. They are having a race within a race.
They're about 4.5 seconds behind the leader, both past champions of this series and running very different lines on the racetrack. Chad McCumbee, the driver with that contrary strategy, now in 4th place.
Now, I think we need to set the stage here. We have about 28 laps to go. All of these trucks were on pit road last, roughly about lap 46. We feel like that they can go somewhere between lap 85 and 88, which is going to be somewhere around 12 to 15 laps to go. I'd like to get Phil and Jeff involved on this. Guys, with about 12 laps to go, we know that everyone has one set of tires, but I've got to believe with that few laps to go, we will see a lot of just gas and go, enough fuel to get you to the end.
Yeah, Larry, either that or maybe right side tires and 1 can of fuel, just to make sure. Obviously, you got to remember, in the event of a green-white checkered, you have to have a little bit extra. So I think as important as tires are here, I think the drivers are going to be hollering for tires, and they're going to want at least right size. Jeff, what do you think?
And I agree with you, Phil. I think the other part of that equation, if you elect not to take on tires, you've got to be extra careful coming down on this pit road. It'd be real easy to lock up the right front, flat spot it, and then you'd have to change tires. So much is going to be said about these guys making a green flag stop. Have they really practiced it? Again, will you get caught speeding in or speeding out? So a lot of factors are going to come into play here, and that's the one thing that Kyle Busch does not need to do is beat himself.
But guys, just remember, if you want 2 right side tires and you're going to have to put fuel in, that's 2 green flag stops. Should we stay green?
Yeah, can't do it, Larry.
And I just don't think you would want to do that.
No, you're going to have to do fuel only. You're exactly right.
And see, that's part of that deal right there. We've still not got accustomed to the rules that are supposed to be run here.
So I forgot it already.
I mean, and you're supposed to know better, driver.
Looking back at race history, the average green flag run to the checker here is just 13 laps. And we have 26 to go. The Camping World Truck Series on Fox is sponsored by Camping World, the official RV and outdoor retailer of NASCAR. By Subway, the big event is back. Any regular footlong for just $5. Subway, eat fresh. By Sprint. Get NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile only from Sprint only on the Now Network. And by Lowe's for all your home improvement needs. Lowe's, let's build something together. 21 laps to go. Kyle Busch out in front of Todd Bodine by 5 seconds. Mike Skinner half a second back. Chad McCumbee with that contrary strategy still 4th. And TJ Bell has been having a great battle with Ron Hornaday for 5th. Right now, Bell has the spot in that number 11. And a few years ago, he's racing Toyota Formula Atlantics, sports cars, open-wheeled cars. And I bet if you'd told him he'd be making his living racing pickup trucks a few years later, he might have just laughed, but he's given this truck a great ride.
And I don't think we can state enough what a great truck he has, because he had to start this race. We talked at the top of the show, a short race. He had to start at the rear of the field because of an engine change. But Chad McCumbee, he is the only truck in the top 5 that's not a Toyota. Mike, you talked about this yesterday. We always talk about going to Michigan, where the big three's at, and they always smile when their make runs well there. Well, this is home for Toyota, and they have 4 trucks the top 5.
Yeah, Toyota's they pretty well own this series for the last 2 or 3 years. You just got the great package, handling and engine.
And here's Chad McCumbee. The Petties were high on him. Petty Enterprises gave him a bunch of opportunities in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. And he lost that ride when Petty Enterprises merged with Gillette Evernham at the end of last season. But Chad McCumbee, Matt, having a fine 4th place run here.
And very quiet on the radio, Mike, but the only conversations really talk about just how comfortable he is with this truck and going the rest of the way on tires if they have to. The 2 trucks in front of him, the 5 of Skinner and the 30 of Bodine, both within 3 laps of each other, came out and said, I have worn out my right front. Both are pushing.
And here's where we're really setting the stage for this strategy. With 19 laps to go, I'm going to say within the next 5 to 6 to 8 laps, these trucks will have to come to pit road. And what will they do? We know they have to have fuel. I don't think, like Phil and Jeff and I were talking, you can come back a second time for tires if we stay green.
Darrell, Todd Bodine and Mike Skinner wore out their right fronts. All they've done is race each other side by side. Chad McCumbee has really conserved what he has under him.
Yeah, I think that's this new pit strategy. The driver has to think a little bit differently. He's got to think about what ifs. What if I can't change tires and only get fuel? So, but here's the other thing. If you believe in history, with about 15 laps to go, there could be a caution.
That's when everybody kind of gets up on that wheel a little bit and they're really sliding around on low tires.
And that's the dilemma down there for a crew chief. That's right when he needs to be pitting. So do I wait? Do I stay out? That kind of data really confuses you sometimes.
Well, now you saw Todd Bodine dip behind a lap truck trying to get a little bit of a draft. They're in fuel conservation mode with 18 laps to go. When will they pit? Stick around. Welcome back to Fontana. The 3rd, 4th, and 7th place trucks hit pit road. Matt.
And Skinner slid to a stop. They're going to go right side tires only. For the 5 of Skinner, he's away. Still debating on fuel or tires on the 30 of Bodine.
Chad McCumbee and Matt Crafton also made pit stops, fuel only.
But we know that Mike Skinner, as the leader goes by Kyle Busch here, with about 13 laps to go, we're getting a report that Mike Bliss in the 40 is actually out of fuel. But we know that Mike Skinner in the 5 truck, regardless of how those tires felt, he's got to come back to pit road to get fuel. He can't make it to the end. You see Mike Bliss already out.
Yeah, this is just the dilemma that you end up in. You need tires or you're going to have a flat. You need gas or you're going to be stalled on the racetrack. So got to go with what you need the worst, I think.
Johnny Sauter comes in. And Mike Bliss coasts in and makes it to pit road, along with Rick Crawford and James Busher. Dick?
Well, the 40, Mike Bliss, had really wanted to put tires on his truck, Mike. He had been dropping back because of an understeer, a push in the truck, but this is almost certainly going to be fuel only because we are on green. And they cannot add tires and fuel on green, just as is the case under caution.
J.R. Fitzpatrick penalized, too fast exiting. He's coming back in to serve his penalty and take tires at the same time. Ricky Carmichael's on pit road, and we expect the leader in